Good afternoon and welcome to UK Column News. It's Wednesday the 6th of May, just after 1 o'clock, and I'm your host, Mike Robinson. And joining me via Skype is Justin Walker, and he'll be on in just 1 second. Weather in Plymouth, a bit cloudy with blue skies, so quite pleasant around the country. It sounds a bit of a mixed bag. We had a pretty windy day yesterday, and in fact extremely high tides once again. So one of the restaurants on the seafront that was damaged last year was very, very close to suffering the same fate this year. I don't know what's happening. Maybe it's sea level rise. Justin maybe can comment on that in a moment. But close call for them once again, just as they're trying to get themselves back into operational mode. Anyway, so we're going to start with the election. And with this article from Nick Robinson on the BBC, it wasn't meant to be like this. This isn't how the election was meant to go, he says. It's been marked by the lack of confidence felt by our political leaders, rooted in the overwhelming lack of trust felt by most voters. Why else would David Cameron promise to pass a law not mentioned in his own manifesto which would stop himself putting up taxes he long pledged not to raise? Why else would Ed Miliband resort to carving in stone pledges so broad and so general that it would be almost impossible to judge whether they've ever been broken? And why else would we see the relentless political cross-dressing as the Tories promised to become the party of the workers and Labour the party of economic responsibility? The two big parties, he said, have even been too nervous to follow the classic campaign themes. Now, Nick Robinson and others commenting today imply that what's going on is no more than accidental, a lack of self-confidence, or an absence of a vision for the future. But in fact, this election campaign is being run exactly as it was supposed to be run. The 7 colours of the rainbow have become the 7 major political parties, no longer just 2 or maybe 3, for it is to be a rainbow coalition, and of course we need 7 for that. And so we have a past Prime Minister openly attacking his own party, while Ed sets himself up as the village idiot. No party strong enough to get ahead, every party as mediocre as the rest, and all the while voter apathy reaches heights never before seen. And as Ian Crane said on Monday night on the Crane Report, they don't want us to vote. They know that if anybody who is independent of thought is not going to vote for them in any case, so they encourage apathy or worse. And if that isn't bad enough, they are generating a constitutional crisis, since apathy has reached such levels, at the local level at least, that there are no candidates. Yet this crisis is engineered, and we, through our inactivity, not only consent to it, we facilitate it. In fact, the complete lack of party activists plodding the streets has left a vacuum which should have been filled, could have been filled by people campaigning on the Bradbury Pound, on child sexual abuse, issue, on TTIP, on constitutional reform, a host of other issues. I think that this election was an opportunity missed. And if we make it to the next one, I think we got to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Justin, any comments?
Well, hello. Yes. Well, I'm like you. Where I live up here in Westmorland and Lonsdale, we've got masses of posters because obviously Tim Farron is desperately trying to defend his position against a strong Tory attack by a local doctor. And I think he will win. So, yes, I have seen that political activity, but elsewhere I've hardly seen any political activity whatsoever. I just did come across something today which I would love people to take note of. Now, there is a small party. I think they're putting up 5, 6 or 7 candidates, the National Health Action Party. And apparently, according to Twitter feeds and everything else, Louise Irvin, who's a well-known doctor, she's standing against the Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt. And apparently, you have to excuse me, I'm wheezing like an old steam engine. The Southwest Surrey constituency is a safe Tory seat, but apparently Jeremy Hunt is he may be defeated according to the pollsters. So I would urge any of our listeners, because a lot of us are all wondering what we're going to do tomorrow in the secrecy of the count, not the count, the actual voting move. You know, if anyone's living in the southwest of Surrey, I would strongly urge them to perhaps vote for Louise Irvine, because it would be a marvellous thing if Jeremy Hunt, who's a bit of an arrogant was shown the door. I think that would be a very nice result to have on the night. And who knows, somebody like Louise Irvine then could be approached about the Bradbury and about the real source of NHS funding for the future. So who knows, something very useful could come out of that.
What are you intending to do, if I'm allowed to ask that question?
Oh, you can ask. Listen, I've been scratching. See, I used to stand. I stood for the Green Party. Last time I stood was in 1992.
You know, we all have a disastrous past,
yes,
Justin.
yes,
you
yes.
know?
Well, this is true. I'd love to know what yours is, but that's another story, another day. But I did actually beat the leader of a national political party. I beat the leader of the Natural Law Party, or as we fondly call them, the Yogi Bear Flying Club. And I beat him by about 200 votes, but that's another story. What I'm going to do tomorrow is probably, because I have to be honest, I cannot vote for Tim Farron because he is an empty vessel and has done nothing on the Bradbury, virtually nothing on the child abuse. Excuse me. And so I think I am definitely going to put a cross by UKIP, but I am going to write a very, very nice, courteous note about the fact the Bradbury pound should be reintroduced and that national credit is the answer. They'll be wondering if I'm writing an essay on my ballot paper, how long I'm going to take. But anyway, I shall write it because I know on the night it will be read by the returning officer and the candidates and probably their agents as well. So that's probably what I'm going to do.
Indeed. So spoiled votes, of course, do all get checked out, and the more spoiled votes, the better, because of course that delays the count. They've got to establish whether a spoiled vote is generally a spoiled vote, or whether it is just somebody, you know, like yourself, Justin, a bit old, that has accidentally done the wrong thing.
What do you suggest? You thinking my dementia's coming on a bit too rapidly today? Probably you're right. Anyway.
The other option, of course, is to take your ballot paper away. Then they have checked your name off the list, and they don't have quite the same number of ballot papers.
You know, I'm tempted to do that now. You've given me another idea. You see, I don't know what I'm going to do until I get down there. It's going to be great fun.
Okay, you wanted me to highlight this little blog post by James Smith, How to Spot a Fake Revolution. What were you concerned about here?
I obviously I wasn't on yesterday when I was on Twitter when suddenly this link came through to the second part to this Russell Brand Miliband setup, and as soon as I saw it, I realised immediately they'd withheld the juicy bits, if you like, and there was absolutely no doubting that this decision to back Miliband as a late thing, this is probably planned weeks ago, if not months ago. We're seeing basically a Pied Piper in action. This guy is Russell Brand. We all know is insincere. I trust him as far as I could throw him. I think he is a false god for the people who are utterly cheesed off with politics, people who mean well, who want to do well, but they don't know where to go and who to follow. And I'm hoping that when the dust has settled after the election, that we can start to point these people in our direction to give them, and I'm not going to use the word hope because that's what all the others do, but we want to give them real direction based on historical precedent and provable truth. And I think that is what these young people are looking for. But certainly in the case of Russell Brand, as soon as I saw that, I just knew immediately that this man is a Pied Piper, and it's interesting that so many other people are starting to pick this up as well. Yeah. So that's good.
Okay, well, immediately after the election, we now have so many people organising for huge constitutional reform. This is yet another one. This is the UK Constitutional Law Association now debating the Constitution after the general election, calling for papers. They're going to hold an event on Wednesday, the 24th of June. And they're hosting a conference at the University of Manchester. They are, aiming for the usual swathe of constitutional reform, including devolution to just about all and sundry. This is the big society on steroids, of course. But their keynote speech is from Adam Wagner of the UK Human Rights blog. and 1 Crown Office Row Chambers. And he's going to be talking about the slow death of UK human rights system. Is it a matter of time, or can the UK learn to love human rights? Well, as I've said, we should absolutely not learn to love human rights, because human rights, of course, can be taken away from us. They are not inalienable. They're not perceived as being, whether you believe in God or not is irrelevant, in my opinion. If you do not accept from a political standpoint or from a judicial standpoint that there is some kind of higher power in this universe than man, then of course man is the ultimate authority. Man can give and take away as man likes. And the concept of the principle of inalienable God-given rights is not one which is acceptable. That is a dangerous situation, in my opinion, and we've got to remember that human rights legislation comes from the basis that we have no rights except those that are given to us. And of course, we've got to remember that one of the rights that we have is the right of freedom of assembly, and that right is being highlighted by Salt.net here, absolutely being taken away right around the world. So what they're saying here is that on March the 26th, without much fanfare or attention from the US media or any other media, in fact, the Spanish government ended freedom of assembly. And then they go on to point out that Quebec, where student strikes against austerity once again disrupt civil society, marches are being declared illegal before they've even begun. They mention that last October a new law was passed in Turkey allowing police to search demonstrators and their homes without warrants or even grounds for suspicion. They're pointing out that the list goes on. France banned Palestine solidarity demonstrations. Police in Australia gained the power to ban protesters from appearing in public spaces for a year, even if they work or live there. In Egypt, Ukraine and Russia, the governments have outlawed protest entirely. Mexico's Congress approved legislation which, if ratified by state-level governments, will modify the constitution so that any unauthorized gathering would be illegal, and the constitutional end to freedom of assembly. And all of that happened in 2014, never mind this year. And we've got to remember that here in Britain, David Cameron has already stated that following the election, should he be Prime Minister, he will begin removing certain civil liberties. These are still undefined, what civil liberties are going to be removed, in order to keep us all safe from domestic extremism, particularly from non-violent domestic extremism. This is an incredible situation, Justin.
Yes, it is. I've been listening to the radio today, and on 5 Live, they mentioned twice that we have an unwritten constitution, because they've been trying to work out all the different permutations of who is going to approach the, who will be in a position to go to the Queen or whatever. And again, they are undermining and diminishing our existing constitution, and I don't like hearing it, and the BBC seem to be at the head of the charge to do this, and I think they need a massive re-education program from us, stating what our constitution is and how good it is, and would you please go away and leave it alone.
Well, of course, that's what the British Constitution Group is for, but it needs a lot more people to help with that. So
exactly. Well, I'm honestly, I think there's one good thing. I mean, as I say, I know what it's like to stand for a general election, and you come away a bit deflated, a bit, a sort of, you put so much energy and adrenaline into something, and of course you don't win on the night. Mind you, in my case, I knew damn well I wasn't going to win. But yeah, I mean, people will come away feeling deflated, people feeling a bit, oh gosh. It's up to us now at the BCG UK column and others. We've got to get in there and get these people who are prepared to get off their backsides, but we've got to channel them in the right direction of what we're doing. And I think we've got huge opportunities ahead of us over the coming months, but it does require people getting off their backsides, talking to people, getting out there, getting onto local radio stations, going to see your local editor, and basically making them aware of what we're saying.
Indeed, we've got huge opportunities, but also a huge challenge, because the number of establishment organisations, think tanks, NGOs, and government organisations that are railing against our currently, you may argue, uncodified, but it's still a written constitution. It's not written in one document; it's written in many documents. And of course, the fact that the current incumbent of the throne is currently in breach of her coronation oath is something that they want to push under the carpet as quickly as they possibly can. So huge challenges ahead, and we can't do it with the numbers of people that we have already active. We need many more people active.
Well, I think we saw on Friday what people can do. That gathering today, or yet on Friday, to help Tom, I found it very empowering. And I think if people experience this sort of energy, they'll be more prepared to do and get out there locally within their own, in their local community, and start to wake people up, because people do need waking up. People are aware that things are bad, but let's just see what the dust brings us. When the dust settles after Thursday, let's see what the situation is. But my guess is there'll be a lot of people out there looking for direction, and it's up to us to give them that direction.
Okay. Well, speaking of events. Just before I came on air, I was told that there is a Unite Against Child Abuse event taking place in Doncaster tomorrow. Now, I have no other details about that at this time, I'm afraid, but I would imagine if you get onto Facebook and look for Unite Against Child Abuse, you'll find the details there. There may be other Unite Against Child Abuse events going on around the country tomorrow. I believe they tend to do things that way. If you do get the chance to go to that and support them, please do. Now, before we continue talking to Justin, I'm just going to show the AV6 video and give us both a quick breather, and we'll see you back in a minute or so.
So I've been watching and 9/11 was just an incredible mind control event. It was apparent to me then, as it is today, that people are literally mind controlled, that they're not actually thinking for themselves. Most of us are simply regurgitating.
We live in a bubble, and a lot of times until you remove yourself from that bubble, you don't even know you're living in a bubble, in a kind of an information prison in the West.
But these guys have got a lot of money, and we complain about McDonald's and all that sort of thing. Do you know why they've got so much money? Because we fucking buy their shit. So it's time to stop it. People say to me, where do we go? What's the first step? Stop supporting the companies that don't give a shit.
Be who you are. Don't police your thoughts, and don't police your expression. Express yourself, but work for something positive. Express yourself in a positive way, Create a better world because you're in it. Now, what is your legacy that you leave behind? Is the world better because you were here? Or is it worse because you were here? Or did you just not participate? Because you have to participate, you really do.
Okay, welcome back. And I have to say, somebody has just put a very clever idea in the chat box. So thank you very much for that. If you do decide to go and vote, but you want to make a point, then the suggestion is, why not put a UK column leaflet in the ballot box, either with or instead of your ballot paper. That's quite a reasonable idea, Justin.
Well, I'm doing it. I love it. Feels to me, anyway.
Okay, you wanted us to cover this issue of Monsanto and
Yes.
India. What's going on here?
Well, now I've got to be careful because I only came across it today, but we do know that Monsanto and their GM crops and what have you are weaving their way into Europe. They're weaving their way everywhere. And it would appear, now obviously this is an article I read today, but allegedly India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi received donations to his campaign funds from Monsanto. This is what's being alleged. And suddenly, because we all know that India is renowned for its red tape. And I know from when you have an earthquake, trying to get search and rescue dogs in, you have to go through all sorts of red tape. They love their red tape in India. But for some reason, Monsanto is now starting to have access. And the farmers are absolutely up in arms because, well, thousands of farmers are rising up all over India saying we do not want GM crop trials or anything happening. Now, at the same time that this is happening, Greenpeace in India is on the verge of winding up because apparently, I've got to read my notes here.
By winding up, you mean shutting down?
Well, they're basically being closed down, possibly within a month, because the government are using, quote, arbitrary penalties, which is a sort of strangulation by stealth. And apparently it's something to do with accusations they've received foreign funding they've not declared. The Ministry of Home Affairs is now trying to, come down heavy of them, again using this red tape. So on the one hand, you've got a prime minister who is now welcoming GM crops into India and trials and so forth, which the peasantry, which the Indian farmers definitely don't want and mustn't have, because it's dangerous, extremely dangerous stuff, as we know. And on the other side, you've got Greenpeace, who are at the forefront of trying to wake people up to the dangers of GM crops, on the verge of being shut down in India. So that is something I think we should be very concerned about.
Okay, well, I then wanted to highlight this little article. It's a little video from Chatham House. Go and have a watch at it if you like. Of course, this is using climate change as the excuse. And what they're saying is, ahead of climate change negotiations in Paris in December, the panelists will explore how the livestock sector contributes to global greenhouse gas emissions. I think we're talking about animals farting here. The speakers will argue that rising meat consumption will affect governments' ability to achieve international climate goals, and that urgent action needs to be taken to address global demand for meat and dairy products. Drawing on the findings of a survey commissioned by Chatham House and undertaken by Ipsos Mori, the speakers will examine global public awareness of the impact of dietary choices on the environment and consider how diets could be shifted away from meat and dairy. Now, of course, meat is considered to be an aspect of people's diets which might be considered wealthier economies tend to eat more meat, and we have to. I think we've got to look at this in the context of the overall sort of collapse of living standards on the planet, and of course the excuse of global warming is what's being used to justify it. But actually, what we are increasingly going to see in the coming years is collapsing living standards and an increase in the cost of meat, and therefore people are going to consume less. You got any views?
Well, it's just Gender 21. I can see us all being driven into bloody rabbit hutches and given lettuce leaves the rest of our lives. But anyway, yeah, no, it's not good. We all know that man-made global warming is a complete, utter scam, bad science, as David Bellamy calls it regularly. And we know that it's being used as a whipping, we are being whipped into a particular direction, which is absolutely not the right way to go. So, yes, it's all Agenda 21, and it's all to be exposed for what it is.
Okay, let's talk about Greece then. So Greece has made a €200 million, and I mean this is pretty insignificant in the greater scheme of things, and it's being presented as being they've made an IMF repayment, and this is brilliant. But it's €200 million. Actually, in a few days, they have to make a further €750 million payment, and of course that's on May the 12th, I believe, and they're not expected to do that one. So I mean, what are you reading into this?
Well, this is I downloaded something from the Daily Telegraph today, and I'll just read this one little section here. Athens has already resorted to raiding the cash funds of its universities, hospitals, and local government bodies to continue paying out public sector salaries and pensions. The government, which has already fallen into arrears to its suppliers, is also mulling plans to introduce a tax on cash withdrawals in a desperate bid to prevent money leaving the financial system. And at the moment, I believe it's something like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something like how much money has been taken out. The pensioners are already up in arms because the pensioners found a delay.
So there's the Independent talking about the pensioners being up in arms, starting a bank run.
Yeah, which was interesting. I think that they managed to prevent that just from happening. But
haven't they prevented that by happening through this alleged tax that they're putting on the withdrawal of cash?
Well, that's it. I think it's €1. They're hoping to raise €180 million for this new surcharge which you have to pay for taking money out. Not for putting money in, but taking money out.
So what they're saying is they're going to put €1 on any...
Every time you take a withdrawal or something,
of 1,000... Oh, no, it's only if it's over €1,000.
Yeah, €1,000. I mean, basically, what we're seeing here, they're scratching around trying to find... I mean, the total debt is €315 billion, and they are scratching around. They've got to, as I say, €750 million by May the 12th. Now, what's interesting, and as I said, it's how it's all going to pan out, I'm not certain. But Mr. Juncker has said that Grexit, the Greek exit, is not an option. He said to the Daily Telegraph. And Greece's debt mountain is now expected to balloon to more than 180% of gross domestic product, compared to the initial projection of 170%. I just don't know how it's all going to pan out. I mean,
well, can I just bring this in, Justin, because this little article maybe gives a clue about the thinking of the people in government, because this is the FT reporting here that they have overturned civil service reforms brought into place by the last government, and so what they're saying is that they are going to rehire 13,000 civil servants whose jobs were lost as a result of the previous legislation done by the previous government. The previous government being perceived as being a pro-EU, pro-IMF government, and this one at least perceived, whether it's true or not, as being anti-EU and anti-IMF. So what they haven't said is how they're going to pay for these 13,000 rehires. But it does seem like they are sort of sticking their fingers up at the European Union at every opportunity.
I just don't know quite. I mean, a lot of people are saying the honeymoon period with Syriza is over and that people will be taking to the streets against them. I personally can't understand why they can't resort to national credit, why there can't be a Bradbury version of a drachma. Well,
it's because they're not a sovereign nation state at the moment. They're a
but they've only been taken. I mean, I argue that they are still sovereign. In my books, everything has been arrived at by unlawful, immoral means. I mean, the whole international banking fraternity have ganged up against Greece. The very fact they behave the way they do. The first rule of common or natural law is that the criminal must never be allowed to get away with their actions. And my feeling is that I would do a two-finger strong gesture at the European Central Bank, the IMF, and the EU, and say we are doing it, regardless of whether you like it or not. I see you in court, or court of popular opinion. No, I just don't know how it's going to end, but I do think.
But isn't that what Colonel Gaddafi did?
Yes, it is, and it was. Well, I know we're coming on to another subject in a moment, so I'll hold back what I'm going to say. But yes, it is. But on the other hand, we now know, millions of people know what the real reason for Gaddafi's removal was, and that's the key to everything. People are waking up as we're talking now. Other people are talking. Millions are waking up. So I don't think they'll be able to do anything to Greece without millions and millions of Europeans who have woken up running to Greece's aid. So I think they may. I would think they would find it difficult.
Okay, well, in the meantime, then in Donetsk,
yes.
They have established the republic, at least it seems to a point. So this article here talking about that in Activist Posts, and they're citing an article from Counterpunch. I'm just going to read this paragraph here because it's quite interesting. A nascent banking system has been established in the two republics by nationalising the banks of billionaire bankers, notably the private bank, Privat, PR or Privat, however it's pronounced, bank of the rightist oligarch Ivor Kolomoisky. The grocery distribution and retail systems have been nationalised, as have the electricity generation and supply industry. Notably, the large metallurgical holdings at Rheinat have not been nationalised, and it's unlikely this would or should be done in the immediate future. The Akhmetov's enterprises provide employment for thousands, and they're paying taxes to the people's republics. At the same time, the days of the oligarchs dominating government, including being appointed as provincial governors, are over. So this is pretty interesting developments in Donetsk, and of course, this fight against the oligarchs is something that Putin's involved in, but the key point here is that they have nationalised their banks, nationalised key infrastructure, and that seems like a pretty positive development.
Well, the point I was about to make just previously is that if we remember when Gaddafi faced up to the rebels in Benghazi, one of the first things the rebels did in Benghazi was set up a central bank which was sympathetic to the Bank for International Settlements and and the banking dynasties. So it's nice now to see rebels doing quite the complete opposite. And I wish them well with this. I don't know how possible it is for us to get information over to our friends in Donetsk, but I'm sure they do know what they're doing. But it would be nice to see the bank, the banks over there actually working for the people and not for the oligarchs. So yeah, I think it's a very positive step, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Indeed. Okay, well, look, Justin, we're going to leave it there, and thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Any final comments?
I'm still mulling over. I love this idea of that A5 Bradbury leaflet going into the ballot box tomorrow. So I should probably be arrested now if I'm encouraging people to do this. Oh gosh, oh golly gosh. But no, I would do it. I think it's a bit of fun. And whether you put your voting slip in as well or you don't, that's another problem. That's a problem for them to sort out. But the whole thing's a charade. We know the whole damn election tomorrow is, we'll just see how the dust settles and see what we're dealing with. But I would just urge people, as I said, if you are in, Southwest Surrey, I think it would be rather nice to see Jeremy Hunt out of office and an ordinary doctor elected as an MP. I think that would be a definite step in the right direction.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Justin. Look, just one final announcement. We're not going to do a news tomorrow. I do apologise for that. Two main reasons for that. It's Brian's first day back, and we've got lots of discussion to take place. But aside from that, there is an ongoing issue with the live stream where it keeps stopping for some reason, and we end up with a black screen, which, of course, we don't notice for quite some time. And I'd like to take the opportunity to try and get that sorted out. So we'll not do news tomorrow, and we'll be back at 1 o'clock as normal on Friday. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you then, maybe with a bit of a clue as to what has taken place in the election. Okay, so see you then, and thanks again, Justin.
Thank you very much.